right, hey everybody. We are here at day 19 of the Vigil for Freedom and Racial Justice here at the North Carolina Executive Mansion. And today we are having our second Chance Sunday offering brought to you. We hope to have this weekly where we will have someone different. Each week come speak to why second chances, why chances, another chance is important. And today we have Dr. Timothy Conder from Durham, who will be having some words with us today. And I'll be also talking to him after this, and some of that content will be uploaded. So, Dr. Conder, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Today I thought I would tell a story, and the story I want to tell today is, I don't think it's original. In fact, you may have heard a version of this story before. So we'll see. But it goes like this. Many days ago, there was an incredibly uncaring and corrupt judge. He'd made it through law school by cheating and relying on notes from his academically gifted friends. He just wanted to make it through school because he knew his social connections and the wealth of his family would assure him of a great job. And it happened just as he suspected. His immense social capital led to a quickly rising career, from prosecutor, district attorney, to eventually over time becoming a judge in this community. But regardless of his success, everyone in the town knew the real character of this man. You know people like this, don't you? This is the type of person who doesn't tip the waitstaff, always complains about the service, and can never be satisfied. The type of person who sees the community as merely assets to help satisfy their greed or their pride, or enemies to be opposed, or simply common folk who just don't matter. Now, this is exactly how that man judged on the bench. His more caring colleagues were constantly bleating on about harsh mandatory minimums, racial inequities and police searches, racial inequities and nonviolent arrests like simple possession, racial inequities in sentencing across the whole spectrum of crimes, the horrible inequities of cash bail, and so much more. But he could care less. He had his eye on the U.S. Senate. You can't get elected for such an office unless you look tough for the community and you fortify the myth that people who come into his court for justice were not real neighbors. They're not someone's mother or father, daughter or son. They're others. They're dangerous. Who cares about what happens to these people? Such was the measure of this man, and all feared to come into his court. And then there was a plague that came upon the land. This disease respected no one. It was contracted by the wealthy, the poor, the urban, the rural. It was so contagious that it ravaged populations of the vulnerable, particularly those that were not able to protect themselves. So the nursing home and the jailhouse in the town of that judge became petri dishes of disease. The plague swept through them, sickening many and killing some. But who cares, really? The old have lived their lives, right? And the incarcerated, well, they're dangerous, they're invisible, they're not our neighbors. This is exactly how that judge felt and how many in the land felt. But some cared deeply. And there was a small group of people that did more than just care. They acted on their caring. They gathered outside his courthouse and they constantly cried for justice. They gathered, they marched, they sang, they preached. They made such a racket it was becoming embarrassing for this corrupt, unjust judge. How could he raise money and win the next election with such negative press? So eventually, the corrupt judge turned to these people, shouting out his window and saying, "What can I do?" They shouted back, "Your jail is wrongly filled with people that are wrongly accused, wrongly tried, and those who have received inordinate sentences for simple mistakes, the kind of mistakes that this judge, his family, and his friends had made while they were young." The jail was also filled with those who had never been convicted of a crime and cannot afford the bail you have set. They've been convicted of crimes that do not matter in some cases. So the people shouted to him, "Let these people go. Let them go. Let them go," he shouted. "They're our friends, they're our family, and they're our neighbors." And they wouldn't shut up. And they just got louder, shouting, "Let them go, let them go, let them go." And the people began to speak some of the names who had been wrongly accused, tried, and sentenced. The racket became so great that many were starting to notice. many began to wonder about the justice of the system and the urgencies of life during a plague. This was not looking good for the judge. And he finally did as the people said, and he emptied his jailhouse of the vulnerable and danger. Thank goodness. Now perhaps, as I think about it, I've heard that story. Where did I hear that? In Luke 18, Jesus told a parable. He said in a certain city, there was a judge who feared neither God nor had the respect of the people. In that city, there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, "Grant me justice against my opponent." For a while he refused, but later he said to himself, "Though I have no fear of God and no respect for anyone, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will grant her justice, so that she may not wear me out by continually coming." And the Lord said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry to him day and night? Will he delay long in helping them? I tell you, he will quickly grant justice to them. And yet when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?" This is the same Jesus who said something that should scare every unjust judge, every uncaring person, and even the caring progressives who refuse to act. He said this, "I was hungry and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not welcome me. Naked and you did not give me clothing. Sick and in prison and you did not visit me." And people will say, "Lord, when was it that I saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison? And did I not take care of you?" And then he'll say to them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to the least of these, you did not do it to me." To the man who lives across the street here, Governor Cooper, I say you have collected the votes just 2 weeks ago from the vulnerable in our state, from the minoritized in our state, and from the people who are working to create a beloved community in our state. You welcome these votes, yet you have not acted in the face of a perfect storm of a broken, corrupt, white supremacist criminal justice system meeting the ravages of a pandemic. You have not lifted your pen to commute sentences, to incarcerate in this unprecedented time of danger and loss. Consider the story that I've recontextualized today, Governor. If you consider yourself a man of faith, a man of hope, a man of progress, do you want to compare as worse than the corrupt judge who heard the widow's pleas? Do you want to look in the face of your Creator, or by whatever name you call that Creator, and say, "When did I ever see you in need?" Governor, what do you do to the weakest, the most vulnerable, the people who are made to be the most least in our society? You do that to your God, and you do that to the precious society that God has made. Today we are that persistent, obnoxious, pain-in-the-ass widow who will not quit shouting until there's justice. We will shout to our political opponents, and we will shout to our political allies for justice. Justice is not partisan. Goodness is not partisan. I read last week that Texas prisons alone had 200 people die in this pandemic who had not even been convicted of a crime. They were merely waiting for their trials or their plea bargains to move through the system. These were death sentences in some cases for small offenses, in some cases being too poor to come up with a bail, and surely in some cases for people who were wrongly accused. In the New York Times today, these statistics jump out. 8 months into this pandemic, the data is heartbreaking. As of mid-November, more than 196,000 coronavirus infections have been reported among state and federal prisoners. More than 1,400 of those prisoners have died. The case rates among inmates are more than 4 times as high as those in the general public, and the death rate is more than twice as high. Inmates are not the only ones trapped with the virus. The correctional system employs more than 685,000 guards, nurses, chaplains, and so on. There have been more than 45,000 reported coronavirus infections and 98 deaths among staff members to date, including at least one that I know of in Durham. These case rates are 3 times as high as for the general public. What about North Carolina? Are we the jurisdiction of unjust judges who act despite their callous lives? Are we the land of caring judges, but who refuse to act? The former actually would be better. Governor Cooper, we've met before. You received me as a part of a delegation working to respond to the pleas of neighbors in our state without documentation, and you said that you cared. We believed you, and we believed your words that day. So I ask now, will you not act? Surely that same caring applies to our family and neighbors in the justice system. May it be so. Amen.
May it be so. I share.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Bless you.